That's done. So welcome everyone to Crowdfunding for Doctors. This is probably one of our most insightful and exciting webinars that we're running up to our DCW online conference, which is next Saturday, the 13th of October. So we've got a lot to cover. We will be finished by eight-ish. So if you're joining us, just a little bit of housekeeping. On Zoom, use the chat box, which some of you are already using, to say hello, introduce yourselves, and that kind of thing. If you've got any specific questions for any of the panelists, please make sure you put that in the Q&A box. So that's a box that should be in your menu, just so we can trace the questions. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, we've also got someone who's managing the questions there. So please feel free to type your thoughts, and we will do our best to answer them as we go along. Your input and your feedback is crucial to the success of this webinar. So thank you so much for taking the time out this evening to join us. So what have we got in store? So we're covering, crowdfunding, what is it, the basics, and then we're going to use Lafina and James. So we're going to introduce Lafina and James, who are both doctors who have successfully crowdfunded in different ways. We're going to talk about our journey through to crowdfunding, which hasn't even happened yet, so we're in that process, as well as what we're doing and how we're doing it for doctors. That's why we're crowdfunding. The rewards related to what we're doing, and some top tips for you if you're thinking about crowdfunding yourself. And throughout we'll have Q&As, and then we'll also, if you've got any questions during, let us know. If you've got any questions at the end, let us know. If we don't cover anything, you can always send us an email. So before I introduce our esteemed speakers, let's find out more about you. So first poll is, why have you joined this webinar? So I'm going to continue. So basically, have you joined us to learn more about crowdfunding in general? Do you want to hear more about what we're doing? Are you planning your own crowdfund? So is this like a learning exercise for you? Or you're not really sure why you signed up, but it sounded like a good idea? So we'll give you another 12 seconds to answer that. And so for those of you on Facebook, just simply type as to why you're watching this webinar, so we can make sure that we tailor the content as optimally as possible for you, our readers. So, we've got like a few more seconds left. We've got a few more people who still haven't decided. So give us a few more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So most of you have joined us to learn more about crowdfunding. Some of you want to hear more about what we're doing, and quite like a third of you, just over a third of you, are thinking about planning your own crowdfund. So that's awesome. That's really useful to know. Okay, so let's move on. So what is crowdfunding? So how would you define it, James?
Find the unmute button.
Yeah.
Hi guys. Crowdfunding. There's two broad types. That I'm going to talk about one, and I think Lafina's going to talk about the other. But I think the thing that joins them together is you're basically asking the crowd to go and fund your idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that's different to the more traditional model where you go to an institutional investor who's got a lot of money and you pitch your idea. Crowdfunding lets you go to sort of 10, 100 or 1,000 or even more people who think that your idea is a good idea, either because they want to buy it themselves. That's how crowdfunding is used a lot to fund sort of niche arts and music and interesting film projects.
Yeah.
Or because they want to pre-order it and get a perk, or because they believe in the business idea and want to get a return from it, and some people have quite a bit of money that they would typically put into stocks and shares and things like that. And I think increasingly people, one, can get a better return from crowdfunding, but also like they get to sort of have more of a story and see where their money's going, and they can maybe give something back, maybe to a young entrepreneur who reminds them.
Okay, so I mean that's a great kind of overview of what that is. So it's not anything that's new, even though the terminology in itself is new. It's just a way to gather a crowd or a lot of people to fund pretty much anything. Currently it's usually used when it comes to specific projects or businesses or causes. So crowdfunding for causes is something that most of us are more familiar with. So an example is, you may know about the Dr. Barbara case. They managed to raise £366,289 in a very relatively short space of time to help support her appeal, which was successful. So that's one example of crowdfunding. Another example I like to use is Hamilton, one of my favourite musicals. So with Hamilton, they pre-sell their tickets about 6 to 9 months in advance. So because it's such a popular event, they're like, right, we want our audience to pre-buy tickets to make sure that we have enough funds to actually put it on at that point. So people will buy tickets for that event in advance, and that's another form of crowdfunding. And then finally, we've touched upon, and we'll talk more about, equity-based crowdfunding. So this is just an example of what James did in 2014, where he raised nearly £200,000 on Crowdcube for his project, which we'll talk more about later on. So there's different forms of crowdfunding, which I've touched upon. So there's donation, so that's where you're giving it to back a cause. Equity, where you're giving money to back a business. So you're actually putting in money to own part of a business. Rewards, where you're giving money and you're getting something usually tangible in return. And then debt equity, where essentially you're taking a loan and expecting a return later on, further down the line. So Lafina, what type of crowdfunding have you done in the past?
Hello, Avena. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the invite. It's really exciting to be part of this webinar and to be supporting Medic Footprints as well.
Thank you.
So in terms of the crowdfunding, well, we only recently stepped into crowdfunding this year in May, when we decided, myself and John, my business partner, that we wanted to make it really, really easy and possible for the medical community to access great property deals. So crowdfunding seemed an obvious choice. And we were looking at, to start with, both equity and debt, because we weren't quite sure which one would be easier to do or which one would be most appropriate for our deal. But in the end, we actually settled for equity. So in the property world, the equity part of the property is the profit or the deposit. And the debt part is what you might recognise as a mortgage or loans or other sorts of property related loans. Mm-hmm. The difference between them is usually with the debt, it's a more secure investment. So it's lower risk, but that also means usually that it's lower reward. And the equity is higher risk, higher reward, and you're actually sharing profits as well as risk with your investor.
Okay, brilliant. That's a very succinct description. So actually that brings us to you anyway. So why don't you tell us a bit about, why did you decide to go down the crowdfunding route for this property development that you had a few months ago?
Well, one of the main reasons that it was so attractive is that it really, I'm sure for a lot of industries, it democratizes investment. So it makes it very easy for a normal person to invest as little as £500 in a property or in any other sort of product. In fact, you can actually set the minimum investment required by the investor. But secondly, and more importantly, it actually sorts out a lot of compliance headaches in terms of whether you're doing things legally and within the current rules dictated by the Financial Services, FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority. So when you, in property investments, what traditionally used to happen is when a group of people would invest together, they would just sort of do it pretty informally. And when that happens, it's quite risky because you're not able to ascertain whether the person that's investing with you is really aware of the risks and rewards. And you can get into all sorts of murky waters. So crowdfunding takes away all of that pain and that risk by sorting out the compliance side of things and allowing you to have as many investors as you want. So we actually had 28 invest in our project. And if we were to do all of that work ourselves, it would be a total nightmare in terms of doing contracts with people, explaining things, Q&A. I mean, we'd have to do that maybe 28 times. Whereas crowdfunding and our platform made it really, really easy because we just were able to reach our investors through social media and through webinars and different types of educational resources, but the platform takes care of all the boring and the hard stuff and the admin. So it's just a really, really great way of getting people involved in property.
Brilliant. I mean, so you hadn't crowdfunded before this project, had you?
No, we'd never crowdfunded.
So how did you prepare for it? What was the preparation like?
So we basically looked around and see what had been done before, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
Uh-huh.
Done quite a bit of reading, I think what's common.
So the sound's gone a little bit down on your microphone, I think.
Is that a bit better?
No, we can hear you. It's just a little bit quiet, that's all.
Oh, no. Okay, I'll speak a bit louder.
Yeah.
Where were we? So we basically looked around to see what had been done before and the sort of key ingredients to a successful crowdfunding campaign. And time and preparation was definitely one of those, but we unfortunately didn't have very much time when we started our crowdfunding campaign, because the way it works with property crowdfunding, you have to have secured the asset, which means at least having exchanged on it to put it on, to be able to put it on the platform. So our exchange came up quite soon, and then we only had 4 weeks to complete. So we just had to really go for it. So we were going into preparation time.
Wow.
So I think it really helped that we already had quite a community at EurekaDoc who were aware of what we were doing. So that always helps in terms of buying trust. And we spent a lot of time doing some face-to-face work, some Facebook Lives, as just making ourselves as visible as possible to tell people that what we were doing. Because if people don't know you're actually fundraising, then no one's going to invest. So I think the key ingredients to successful campaign are really, have as much time as you can prior to launching, because if you build the excitement and build the intrigue and the information, and just make sure that you have regular communication with your target audience, then the chances are your campaign will go very well once you've gone live. But I think more than anything, you've got to think of your customer. This is your investor, and what's best for them, and what's the best possible deal that you can offer them. So what was it really important to us? A lot of people don't offer their investors, a huge return on investment, but we really wanted it to be really valuable. So ours was actually a return of 20% return on investment, which in property is really, really good. So it was highly attractive. And
so you raised your whole the whole funding in 7 minutes of launching, is that correct?
Yeah, we did.
So that was £80,000, wasn't it?
So we actually overfunded it in 7 minutes. So our target was £80,000. But we actually raised 93.
Wow. So, I mean, tell me more about, were you expecting that? I mean, did you have people lined up for when it would actually go live?
No, we didn't. And I was thinking of extending, most people think of family and friends, just to get some support on board and to get the first few investors coming in. But it happened so quickly, I actually didn't really have the chance to talk to my friends and family about it, although they probably saw it on Facebook. So I think it was just having an awareness in the community of this is what's going on, and people were ready. They liked the property project that we were doing. They understood it, which is a massive obstacle, because if someone's confused, then they're never going to invest with you. And it was just really good value. I mean, we offered people the best deal that we possibly could, and we also offered an educational element, which I think made it even more attractive, because people can actually learn how to invest in a property and convert it. We're doing actually an office conversion into flats, and then they can go off and do it themselves, or they can continue to invest with us on other projects.
Awesome. So how many backers did you get in the end?
How many
backers? How many investors did you get?
We had 28 investors.
Oh, wow, that's a pretty good number. How about you, James? Let's say for the last crowdfunding you did, how many investors did you get?
We ended up with about 140.
Wow. So that's 140 people that were like yes to your project.
Yeah, and there was a big variation in it. So some were sort of like student friends of ours or sign-up users who wanted to put in £10 sort of to support the project and to be part of it. So that accounts for a good 50, 70 people. Then we had some people who put in about 20 grand. So we had a cut off of 5 grand if people wanted like a more active say in the company in terms of voting rights. And then below that, it was sort of just being a part of it, really. So it's not, 140 seems like a big number to manage, but the reality is you don't actually have to manage that many people.
So how many people out of your 140 are actively kind of contacting you, interested, you've developed a relationship with them?
Well, one's joined our board earlier this year, and he's been sort of like really helpful and sort of like putting for our second rounds as well. He's a former medic himself, actually, who set up a software company back in the day and is now actively involved in a couple of angel investments around Yorkshire. So that's been really helpful from a mentorship point of view. And then say there's about 5 more who are sort of particularly interested in it and sort of helped to open doors for us and that kind of thing.
Brilliant. Okay, and like just for both of you, during the crowdfunding, so this is like whilst it was live, did you have to do anything additional to really get people to take money out of their wallets, so to speak?
Basically everything, I think. I don't know if it's different from you, Lafina. We spent a lot of time sort of like getting that first 30% in, which I think I'll talk about a bit more later, sort of your personal networks and stuff. But then beyond there, I think going into crowdfunding on Crowdcube, I thought it was going to be like booking a booth at a large conference, and you basically got lots of people every day walking past and showing an interest, and then your job is to like close the sale. It's not, you are renting an event space in the middle of nowhere, and you've got to send out the invites and go out into the street and grab people and pull them in and stuff like that. There was a couple of people who came from Crowdcube, but the rest of it were all people that I'd sort of spoken to or emailed or grabbed a coffee with.
Okay, well, I think that actually brings us to you doing your presentation, right? Because you've got some really useful slides for us. Do you want to share your presentation?
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen, go through some stuff. But Abane, if you want to sort of like chip in with any sort of questions that you think would be interesting at any point, then go for it. All right. About how long do you want this to last for? Because I can sort of
let's do it for like 5-10.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So little bit about me. So I'm a graduated.
Can't see your screen yet.
Oh, yeah. That will be because I forgot to do it.
Great.
We good?
Yes.
Cool. Little bit about me. So my name's James. I'm a medic by background. So I graduated from Leeds Medical School last year. I didn't go on to practicing medicine for various reasons, but mostly because about halfway through our medical degree, my co-founder and I set up a revision tool called Sign-Up. It was really basic at the time, but what it let students do was practice and engage with really personalized sort of case study and other multiple choice questions in preparation for their exams. And we sent it out to people in sort of like short bursts that they could engage with every day, and then optimized it based on what they most needed to practice, given their strengths and weaknesses. So over time that grew to the point where when we graduated, we had about 1 in 4 UK medical students using it and content from Oxford University Press. So yeah, we graduated and this was looking like a viable business, and we just thought we really want to go for it and see how far we can push this thing. So that's what we've been doing for the last 12 months. Along the way, we crowdfunded. So about halfway through, the platform was getting a couple of thousand users a day and not much revenues because we couldn't really focus on marketing it. But we knew we wanted to get some extra people involved and start taking this seriously. So we crowdfunded. We raised about 120,000 from Crowdcube, so that's an equity crowdfunding platform. So as Abena and Lafina were saying, you give away a portion of your business to multiple people who then invest in it.
I wanted to actually go back to that slide. So one thing we haven't mentioned, that one thing people don't realise with equity investing, going back to the Crowdcube side, actually, like how much did you have to raise to actually get onto the Crowdcube platform? Privately.
How much did we have to raise privately?
Yeah.
We could have gone on at any amount, but they strongly recommend that you have about 30% of it lined up beforehand from private sources. So it's really, there's a lot of psychology involved in this kind of thing because you're dealing with a lot of people who are putting in small to medium amounts of money. There's a lot of like relatively simple things that take effect. So it's like, you know, if you see a listing on Crowdcube and you're in the mood for investing, Are you going to be more likely to invest if it's at 0%, if it's at 30%, or if it's at 99%? And it's sort of like, if it's 0 or close to 0, then people are going to think, but this guy couldn't even get like his mum to put in 100 quid or something. There must be something wrong with it.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
There's something to it. At 99, then you're like, God, I've got to get in on this. Maybe these guys must know something I don't. And that's why a lot of people overfund. So it's interesting that Athena said you overfunded by about the same percentage that we did. And that's because there's a lot of people sitting on the fence. And as soon as your business idea makes it, they suddenly decide that they want in. Another quick addendum to that is it's also worth factoring in overfunding, because you will do it. Like, pretty much guaranteed, if you get 100%, you could run for another 2 weeks and get 120. If you don't get 100% though, because that's the amount that you've said you need in order to make the business work, you get nothing.
Yeah.
And no money's taken. So it's worth factoring that in.
So is that the same with your platform, Athena?
Yeah, so we used simple crowdfunding. There are lots of different property crowdfunding platforms, but it's exactly the same, other than the fact that you don't have to have raised anything when your project goes live, so you can have 0. But if you don't reach the full target, then you don't get any of it. And like you said, James, it's such a psychological game, because particularly with property investments, if the project goes live, and these things do take time to fund. I mean, it can take sort of up to 3 months, but the more it's sitting there on a platform unfunded, the less sort of attractive it starts to look. And actually, people then start to lose faith in the developers and the people who are sort of on the team, and they think, oh, it must be a rubbish project because no one's funded it. So there's all of this kind of anxiety going on in your head.
So basically saying totally there's a herd mentality involved in the crowdfunding process. So the real benefit for you actually getting most of your, or at least a substantial proportion of your investment, is getting your friends and family involved right at the start, as soon as it lifts off, essentially. The chances of you being funded. And also, you were speaking about the duration of time that it's that you leave for it to be funded. So what we've chosen is to do this on Kickstarter as our first preference, which is a rewards-based platform. And they say statistically, the shorter your funding period, the more successful you're more likely to be.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I just push back a little bit on that. I wouldn't exactly call it a herd mentality, although I know what you meant. It's more that there are some helpful heuristics for people. So a lot of people want to invest who are not VCs and haven't appraised early stage companies before. And even if they were, it's a really bloody risky game to do. So the reason for sort of like following simple rules like what percentage have they got and this, it tends to lead to like good decisions from people. So I think people are happy to outsource some of the responsibility to other people in the crowd, and that's sort of what makes it work. Okay,
brilliant. Next slide.
Cool. So I'm just going to quickly run through like a couple of the top things that I think we learned during the process. These are really good examples, I think. So, in fact, a little bit. There are 3 big sort of like equity crowdfunding platforms on the market. There's more niche ones. I don't know much about the property investment. I imagine that's got its own ecosystem. But in terms of funding a company, like a startup-y or a different sort of business idea, Seedrs, Crowdcube, and Syndicate Room. Without going into the details of all of them, Seedrs is best for sort of like if you want lots of small investments. A Syndicate Room is great if you want a couple of big investments, and Crowdcube sort of sits somewhere in the middle. For most people, I would probably err on the side of Crowdcube. Syndicate Room, if you can get a one cornerstone investor to put up 25%, then they'll take you onto their net platform of high net worth individuals, and you've got a 90% chance of getting funded. Seedrs, it's not the individuals who are named on your like share certificates, it's actually Seedrs. And when you sell or give dividends, they sort of like issue money on behalf of them. So for that reason, it's good for sort of companies raising a smaller amount or investors who want to just have £10 in. Prepare for a 3-month or 4-month process. So the actual crowdfunding on Crowdcube, it takes about 28 days. But before then, there's a fairly arduous vetting process. So they make sure that every claim that's in your business plan and your pitch video is backed up by evidence. And like Crowdcube's got an incentive to obviously make money through the platform, but they also want to make sure that the companies allowed on are at realistic valuations and that they deliver returns for people. So they've got a business analyst team who sort of pre-qualify the companies that go on. We had to evidence like everything. So I'd said in our business plan, students really loved using Sign Up when we first released it. and I had to send in screenshots of the Facebook posts from like years ago and stuff like that. And then you've got a bit of wrap up time at the end as well, when you're sort of like gathering. So what you've got is an intent to pay from people, essentially. Then you've got to go and gather that, and some people inevitably drop out, and if that's a big investor, that can obviously cause problems, especially if it brings you under your limit. That's another reason to overfund.
So what are the actual costs involved in the crowdfunding process? So let's go through the different periods. So you've got pre-crowdfund. What were your upfront costs there?
So the crowdfunding platform doesn't cost anything to list on. They take, I think it's a flat fee plus a percentage of the raise. And I think it's a pretty reasonable amount, I think. And if you're doing a big raise, you can usually negotiate them down a little bit.
So looking at the preparation you had to do before you even got on, as in before you actually pressed.
Yeah.
What, so you had to spend any money?
We did spend bits of money. You can do it sort of in-house. What you will need is, you need a business plan doing, and you'll need a set of financial projections, and you'll need a pitch video at like a minimum. So I'd say that's going to cost you anywhere from maybe like £1,000 to £5,000, depending on like who you know. Can you get someone to do mates rates? Is someone on your team an accountant or whatever? I did the business plan like myself, and it took a lot of my time, but we didn't spend anything to do it. We got some student friends of ours who were into video editing to do the pitch sort of video. And actually that can be done fairly cheaply, because you can just record yourself to camera. It doesn't need to be an all singing, all dancing video. People just want to see a bit about who you are. And then the financial projections we got done properly, because it's like the finances. So we got Grant Thornton to do that under a good scheme that's probably still going about. So it doesn't cost too much, like actually. There's a lot of time involved, and then you're probably going to want to reserve maybe 5% of your total raise amount or something like that for marketing, as in like, you know, going out there, running some physical events, distributing some promo materials and things like that.
How about during the process, during and after? Were there any additional fees? So you talked about what was the commission from Crowdcube? I
don't know. It'll be available on Crowdcube's site. I think it's definitely not more than like 5%. It seems to be like they're charging like a low amount just for doing the platform sort of thing, and not trying to take credit for actually driving people to the platform.
Okay, brilliant. How about you, Athena? Were there any upfront costs with your raise?
Other than all of the upfront costs that are related to property. So yes, there were a lot of upfront costs related to the project itself, but not to, obviously not to the platform. You just list it. It's free to list it, and you pay the platform the fees after your project has funded. And again, typically most platforms will charge anything between 3 and 6%. The equity raised.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. So yeah.
Cool. Last point on that slide. If anyone's not familiar with SEIS and EIS, then look those up, because they're really good tax break incentives for people investing in early stage companies that effectively make your investment a lot cheaper and a lot more attractive to people. So investors will want it. You don't technically know whether you're eligible for ESEIS until after the raise, but you can get an advance assurance from HMRC, which will make people feel a lot easier. That can take up to 6 weeks to do. So if you are thinking about doing a crowdfund, do that well ahead of time. It doesn't take long to do, but it will take a long time to come. We've talked about this, so try and have 20% psychology of it and all of that. Prepare regular, exciting updates for investors. So this goes to what Lafina was saying about like keeping that momentum going. You've got to give this impression that like this is a fast-moving business where lots of things are happening, and that people need to invest sort of like right now and not leave it till the last minute. And you've got to like keep that momentum going and stuff like that. So try and give yourself funding targets every week. Try and have some interesting updates to announce, whether that's a new feature on the product, like in our case, or a partnership that you've managed to do. What worked really well for us, and I know a lot of other people, is doing actual events. So we rented out like a space in Leeds, invited like 100 people down, got some wine and pizza from Costco, then did a bit of a presentation and sort of drummed up interest that way. Now, no one invested on the night because people need to go away and think about it, but a bunch of people did, and there were definitely people talking about it, like within the niche community in Leeds, that we wanted people talking about it for a couple of weeks after.
So what percentage of that are interest? Because obviously we are running an event at IBM for doctors on next Friday. So like what, from your experience, what percentage of people actually did it on the day and then did it later on from those 100 in the room? It's difficult to estimate probably. But...
Yeah, no one did it on the day. I think depending on the type of crowdfunding you do it, that depends. If you're doing a Kickstarter Indiegogo thing, I think you could definitely do that because the barrier to entry is a lot lower. Where if someone wants to do it on Crowdcube, they'll be faced with the FCA regulation questionnaire. They'd have to certify themselves as a high net worth individual. They have to go through and essentially sign a contract saying that they would pay and like all the rest of it. So you're probably not going to, I wouldn't even have that as a call to action at event for that because you're running the risk of like pressuring investors too much and that will cause you headaches in the future. But for product crowdfunding, I think that's a totally reasonable way to do it. Okay,
brilliant. What's your next tip?
Physical events, handling. That surprised even me, but we've done that. My laptop's been a bit slow. Yeah, this is about using your personal networks. Now, I find it really awkward using my personal networks. Like I've not posted anything on Facebook for about 18 months now, just because I sort of want to post sign-up related things, but then I also don't want to just appear like I'm sort of like showing off or anything else. So you don't want to be that guy who just sort of like tweets out voting campaigns and vote for my band and do this and stuff all the time. But your friends do want to know about what it is you're doing, the struggles as well as like the good stuff of it. So post a more personal update, have a bit of a call to action, see if people want to get involved, but make the aim of the post to still be like Facebook appropriate, if that's where you're posting it. Like this is a story of how it's important to my life, not just vote for my thing, because your friends will grow tired of you after a bit. It's definitely a numbers game. Like this is essentially like a drawn out sales process. That's what it means. You're not going to, most of perhaps your conversations are not going to result in sales. So you've got to have a bit of resilience built into doing that. Yeah, as I said before about not doing it at the events, it's actually a fairly drawn out process with a few different touch points. There are still huge barriers for US and Canada residents investing in the platform in equity crowdfunding. It's relaxed a bit since, but at the time we were doing it, equity crowdfunding wasn't even allowed by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the States. So we had a Harvard professor who wanted to put in 25,000, which would have been great, not just from the money, but then he was a Harvard medical lecturer. So that would have been a great business development opportunity for us. He essentially would have, even though he's on something like 100 and whatever grand a year, he'd have had to go to his solicitor to go give him his financial documents to get a signed letter saying that this guy is earning enough that he can invest in in the early stage businesses and he understands the risks, and then they get a dry ink, wet ink signature sent over. So it was just too much of a pain for him to do. So we had to drop that one.
Okay.
Pitch marketing, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have a couple of different tactics that you can employ and be prepared to sort of like double down on the one that's working for you. So I think everyone knows this sort of like just intuitively. Like you see an advert one time, you don't really think much of it. You see it a second time in a different medium, and then a third time, and it seems like the combined effect of all of those is greater than just the sum of its parts. So I would just try and like saturate people on different channels. So online, obviously, do that. Do what you can organically. There's a great service called Thunderclap, which lets people sign up to send a tweet about your campaign, but it sends it all at the same time. So you reach a critical mass. So 100 tweets in 1 minute is better and more likely to get you trending than 100 tweets drawn out over the space of a week.
Yeah. Apparently, like the stats for kind of seeing something online and actually kind of getting someone to click a link or even pay attention to it, they would have had to see it at least 10 times now. Not too long ago, someone was saying 7 times. So it seems that barrier is like really going up constantly. Is it just because, do you think it's because of the noise online? I mean, what do you think, Lafina?
Yeah.
Sorry, Lafina, going to Lafina now. Get you back in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with what you guys are saying. I think definitely having that brand identity and visibility and consistency, and just kind of trying to dip into the peripheral vision of people that might not even be interested, because not interested now doesn't mean they're not going to be interested later. And I think after our crowdfunding campaign, we realized how important that was. And I did, like you, James, felt a bit uncomfortable about doing stuff on Facebook, particularly Facebook Lives and stuff like that. I remember sitting at like 6:30 in the morning before work doing a Facebook Live. to tell people we're launching tomorrow, just because, you know, we were so worried that it was just going to take too long and it was going to affect completion and that sort of thing. But later on, people came up to me and said, "Oh yeah, you're that property doctor, aren't you?" And I don't really follow you, but I kept seeing your posts, and then ultimately it led to an investment. So it pays off.
It's really positive to get that feedback. And I guess the question is how, I mean, as people who are like doctors, we're quite conscious about putting ourselves out there. I mean, I certainly am. It might not appear like that for people that don't know me, but you know, getting online, being social, it's part of that strategy because it's important. And social media is like the most low cost, easy accessibility way of getting your stuff out there. But you know, I think as doctors, we're also concerned about putting too much stuff out there and spamming people and bothering them. Like, how do you know when you've reached that boundary and that barrier?
I don't think you should ever think that you're bothering someone. If you think of your own kind of web behavior, I mean, I don't know what you guys are like with social media, but you know, you go onto social media because you're bored and you want to browse and you want to learn something new. I mean, I don't really use social media to contact my friends and that sort of thing, to be honest. It's all like business related. But you know, you'll ultimately always get sucked into something, like some advert or some video pops up and you end up finding out about other people. For me, I find out about a lot of property people and stuff that I'm interested in the property world through social media. And I mean, if it's not that you're going out there, you're asking people to invest with you, like James said, you're telling a story. So you're like, hey guys, you know, we're doing this project, this is what we're doing, or this is what I'm learning, or does anyone have any ideas? And you know, it doesn't always have to be like a hard sale.
Great. All right, sure. Yeah, James, going back to James and his presentation.
Yep, sure. Right, this is a really obvious point, but there's a reason I include it. So you don't want to, and I don't think you can even publish all of your business plan information publicly. There's some sort of regulation around it. People can see your video and then they can request further information. That's good because then you've got their email address and you can follow up with them. Reply to those as soon as possible, like within 5 minutes. Because I notice this every time it happens. Like if you reply in 5 minutes, you'll almost always get a quick response back from someone just saying thanks or something, and they were way more likely to invest. You leave it more than 5 minutes and it just drops off a cliff. And I think that really puzzled me for a while because I'm like, you've seen the video, you're interested, doesn't matter if I send it in 5 minutes or if I send it, you know, not at 3 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people are just casually browsing and they're probably looking at loads of different things and stuff like that. So you know what it's like on the internet. Like I sign up to all sorts of stupid stuff like later on, and then I lose interest very quickly. I think everyone does. If you capture people whilst they're still interested, it seems to hold their attention for a lot longer, and they've had a bit of a personal contact with you then, so they're more likely to read your plan and then get interested in the idea.
Yeah, brilliant. Good point.
This is like a general point, I think, in business, but you're going to get lots of suggestions from people. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be absolutely insane. And I think you want to be accommodating. So your investors are potentially going to be people who are pretty successful in the field that you're wanting to start a business in. So sometimes it definitely pays to listen to them. But also you're the one with the idea, and you just need to know when to adapt to people and when to sort of like stand your ground and go, no, we're not putting ads on it, or no, when we're going to have to charge this much for it, or no, we're not going to go into this sort of field even though I know you really like it. And then do that in a reasonable sort of non-confrontational way.
Brilliant.
I think this is the final one. I'll just sort of wrap up. It doesn't count until it's in. So even if your absolute bestest friends from high school says that he will definitely put in and you don't need to worry about it and you can just go and spend the money right now because it's all already on its way to you, don't. You need them to put in. And if they are your friends and they are going to put in, they will understand why you want them to put in sooner, because you need people early on. Lots of people will invest later down the line. If your friends want to invest, and in particular they want to help you, there's no reason why they won't go in sort of like early on. And then obviously they still got the same rights to cancel and stuff, but I think you should sort of like, push with your friends and just make sure that they understand how important this is. And if they don't want to do it, that's totally fine. But if they are going to do it, you'd really appreciate it if they would do it early so that you can start shouting about it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much. Go on. Yeah.
Right.
So, let's just go back to our presentation. Let's make sure this is working. So we've heard from James and Nafina. So I'm going to tell you about our crowdfunding journey and what we're doing for doctors. So that's essentially you. Just a reminder, if you have any questions about for James, Nafina, or myself, then please put them through the Q&A box. So we are trying to build something really important that will revolutionise careers and well-being for doctors. How did we get to this point, and why are we doing this? So number one thing, suicide rates in doctors are the highest compared to any professional group. So I'm sure that most of you, or even some of you, have experienced stress or depression at some point in your career, which is actually totally normal, but the support services that are available aren't as easily accessible as they could be. Over the last few years in particular, there's been an increasing number of doctors deciding not to go and continue training straight after their second year post-graduation. So only 3-4 years ago, that number was around kind of 70 to 90%, and now it's at 50%. And that just seems to be an increasing trend that we're seeing. And also a lot of these doctors, and doctors at different stages in their careers, whether it's early, late, mid stage, they're looking for ways to diversify. So I mean, all of us, we've all diversified as doctors. Nafina and myself are still in clinical practice alongside our businesses. James decided that after he'd finished, because he did most of his entrepreneurial stuff even before he finished his med degree, he decided to focus on business. And these skills that we've developed outside of clinical medicine have been extremely useful to become kind of better leaders in whichever field or sector we've decided. I mean, what do you think about that, Nafina? So everything you've learned in business, property development, how has that helped you be a better doctor in many ways?
God, I think it's helped me immensely, because I just feel more fulfilled and well-rounded as a person. And I think particularly within the field of entrepreneurship, it gives you a real buzz, it gives you creative outlets, you exercise and develop skills that you've had all along actually in medicine, but you're just applying them to a different field. And you just gain an immense sense of freedom and independence and excitement from that. So for me, variety is very energizing, and it makes me excited to get up in the morning and go to work. I'm a GP trainee, as you know.
You're absolutely loving it.
This is the first time in 10 years, guys.
Wow, that's really, really encouraging to hear.
I love it. I love being a doctor. I think it's a brilliant job, but it's just about getting the balance right.
Yeah, and to be fair, I hear a lot of doctors who have either taken a break or they're doing something else on the side, and they love medicine, or they go back having been stressed from medicine full time, they come back, they do something amazing, they come back, and actually I really enjoy that balance, and I actually enjoy the medical time I have, the clinical time I have more, because I've got something else to balance that with in my week. So I mean, that's really consistent. The issues that actually all of us have, and I certainly did have, like when I wanted to do something else and find other ways to develop myself, I didn't have the networks, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the resources, and that's not readily available to most of us. So I mean, I started Medic Footprints a few years ago without really much of a plan. It was just basically a way to explore other opportunities in a, I say, a safe space, but in a really kind of innovative way. So a lot of my doctor colleagues are feeling similar in the sense that they wanted to do other things. And I came across doctors who are doing really exciting things. I had one doctor who is still a founder of an international fashion magazine whilst he was a full-time consultant urologist, and he had offices in Singapore and China and New York, and he'd go to Milan on the weekends, do a catwalk shoot, and then be back on his on-call on the Monday morning. But he couldn't talk about that lifestyle because he would be seen as essentially a traitor to medicine, and those, back in those days. So we started off with that, and since then we've had over 11,000 subscribers with over 100 people joining us a week. We've run numerous events. You'll probably be familiar with our online conference that we run every year. We've worked with diverse companies, from big brands and management consultancy, health tech, and pharma, to ITV, to a whole range of different companies. And we haven't raised any funding to do that. It's just completely been organic, which we're really proud of. So I'll take you through what we're doing shortly. But what I wanted to start off with is find out more about you. So we are building a platform to enable doctors to do these kind of things a lot more easily. So my question for you is, next slide. So you're designing this. What features would be most important to you? So let me just try and see if I can get this poll working. For some reason, this poll, okay, next one. So which features are most important? So I'm just launched this poll. So the options are direct access to employers in various sectors, so not just one type of employer, networking with doctors in a whole variety of different roles, direct access to well-being, career coaching advice. You can choose more than one. I know you can choose one for this one. Resource of information, portfolio career management, and being able to promote your own services. So take a little bit of time to read through those. Like Lafina, James, what are your thoughts of, if we're building this platform, what's the most important element that we need to focus on right at the beginning?
Oh God, it's hard to choose between.
A lot of options there, kind of overwhelmed people.
I mean, the first thing, I feel really excited about this. I think this is a massive opportunity for actually not only for medic footprints, but for the future of medical careers. And it's a great opportunity for doctors to revolutionise their careers and to move into the 21st century, which is much needed.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick one, I think oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I think the networking, if you get the networking right, then I think a lot of other stuff will fall into place. So a lot of the other things you want to get out of it, doctors, there are lots of sort of innovative and entrepreneurial thinking doctors sort of up and down the country, but on an individual hospital or medical school basis, there's maybe only a handful of them. So I think the more opportunities to get those guys in a room, see that they're not as much of a minority as they maybe think, and start opening some doors in terms of access to employers and portfolio management and promoting each other's services. Probably some good emergent stuff would happen as a result of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think having access to the employers, because most people, when they know what they want to try something else, they just don't know where to go. So having all the employers in one room or one area, God, that would be so valuable. As well as just going back to your original reason for kind of doing this in terms of suicide rates and the burnout and depression. There are societies and organisations set up, as we know, but a lot of them are quite kind of stuffy and traditional. So I think having something through medic footprints would be really valuable.
A new, exciting, new generational organisation. I love the idea of that. So I'm going to end the poll. So we've got over 40% of you said that you'd want the networking with doctors in diverse roles is highly important. And you're right, it's about who you know. Coming second is a resource of information about diverse careers and well-being. And then a few other people said they wanted access to employers and being able to promote their own services. So that is really useful, valuable information. So we've got so this platform we're building is also for the other side. So companies who are looking to hire doctors beyond kind of public sector. I mean, public sector as well, but also private companies. We're also going to be focusing on the value of data. So you've all heard of AI and predictive analytics. Without going into that into too much detail, what we really want is this platform to be able to provide the best career options for you as an individual, rather than for you as a general kind of overarching group of people. So using analytics to help you do that. So connecting you with roles that you probably never even thought of, and also providing better support systems for your careers and well-being. So because we have subscribers in different countries, we are looking to take this globally, guys. So we are looking to go big with this. And if successful, it can be used for other professional groups. And we'd prefer to target some of the high-risk groups as well. We are planning a crowdfund on Kickstarter, which is reward based. So when we talk about rewards, we're talking about you will give us money in return for something. So I'll take you through some examples of our rewards just in a few minutes. We're raising up to £50,000, and that's for a very basic platform just to get it started, and also the costs associated with making that platform. If we overfund, and hopefully we'll be able to use that money to actually have some full-time team members working for us, expand the user base, do a lot of marketing, and like James and Lafina's plans on platforms, if we don't raise our minimum £50,000, all that money will go back to you, and that will be it. So again, it's really important that we reach that goal. So final poll, what would you like? So as I mentioned, so we are basically offering rewards. So you will get something tangible in return for your pledge, as well as backing a really, really valuable project. So what would you like in return for your pledge? So we've got a few options here, and I'm just going to start this poll. So I would love your feedback. For those of you on Facebook, feel free to type your answers and let us know what you think. So Lafina and James, again, James is now changed rooms, which is quite exciting. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts? So we've got a list, like free tickets to Medic Footprints events. So this is like the ACW, our cornerstone flagship event we run every year in London, but we're hoping to go outside of London in the future, maybe in a different country. Who knows? We've hundreds of doctors that come from across the country to share their stories, network. We've got exhibitors. It's really fun and exciting. Both James and Lafina have been there in previous years. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think I would like membership to the new platform.
Awesome.
I mean, you know, I love ACW, but we'll probably be there with Eureka Doc with any luck.
Of course you are. How about you, James?
Like in all seriousness, if there's an opportunity to sort of like come down and maybe sort of exhibit at one of your events in exchange, we'd sort of go for that.
Yeah, I mean, we do actually have, we've got different levels of funding opportunities. So the lower levels are for the members or for the public, and the high levels are for companies that would like to use our platform, and some of that also includes exhibiting. So let's close this poll. It's completely split, which is really cool. So some people want free tickets, woohoo. Some people want membership to the new platform. Some of you want career coaching sessions, so that also is included. Wellbeing retreat for medics, that's something I'd really love to do. And some of you are interested in advertising to the large network, and some of you also want a lovely Medic Footprints t-shirt, which Owen, who is with us to the side, is still wearing from earlier on. He loves that t-shirt.
Very proud of that t-shirt, guys.
Got the t-shirt look on.
Team player,
yes.
On brand.
So we basically bought a whole lot of t-shirts for you guys, which we will be giving out to the first 100. So regardless of what you pledge, you can get a t-shirt from us. So we will be kind of opening on the 12th of October at this amazing venue. I cannot even believe that we've got this venue. And I have to say thanks to Lafina Diamandis and her property connections. Ironically enough. So we are going to have this event on Friday next week at IBM South Bank. So this is a client center. They've welcomed us with open arms. So besides us talking about Medic Footprints, we have a really diverse group of influential medics, doctors, dentists, and vets. So we've got Claire Gerarda, we've got Ted, who's the professor, ex-chair of the RCGP and lead for the practitioner health program. We've got quite a few NHS clinical entrepreneurs who will be pitching their startups. We will have IBM talking about AI and what's the latest in AI for healthcare. And we will give out our awards that we've got on dcwonline.org, so check that out. So it's going to be an amazing opportunity. There'll be drinks, there'll be food, there'll be people. So if you are a member of Medic Footprints, hopefully you would have applied to come to this event. It's invite only. Otherwise, if you are hoping to watch it, we will be live streaming it on the DCW Online website. And this should be the URL for our fund when it actually starts. So if you're interested in this, 6 o'clock Friday next week, please support us. So just finalizing about the challenges that we've had through this journey, and very echoing what Lafina and James have been through. So, for the last, I'm an occupational health doctor, and I've been running Medic Footprints for the last 3-4 years whilst working full time. It was very, very, very hard work, and I eventually actually got burnt out, which was inevitable. And people told me about it before it happened, and I didn't believe it until it did happen. So, I made a decision eventually to step out of full-time training. I'm still working clinically, but I do that on a sessional basis. So that's essentially about 4 or 5 days a month, which really works. And I can focus the rest of my time to Medic Footprints. So I spent a lot of the time deciding what was the best way to crowdfund, because as we've discussed, there's several ways of doing it. And we chose this form of crowdfunding, reward-based, as a tentative first step in the journey. It democratizes the process. It also means that we don't have to find someone who's going to put a huge chunk in the first, because we want this platform to be for doctors. We want it to be owned by doctors. We want it to be led by doctors, because that is who it benefits. So this is why we chose it. And it took a very long journey, a lot of discussions, a lot of heartache, a lot of sacrifices to get there. So I would say, yeah. So, this is what's behind it. The second is leveraging the network. So we've mentioned some stuff about how challenging it can be, even with your friends and family, to actually get them to actually give you some money. And for us, it hasn't been any different. It has been a real challenge, particularly because we decided in August, or at the end of July, when everyone decided to go on holiday, because that's what happens in August. So leveraging a network when everyone's on the beach is really challenging, and especially when people get back, they've got a lot to deal with. So getting people's attention can be really hard, and that's something that we face. So I think that's something for you to consider if you're crowdfunding, as choose the right time to do it and plan way in advance, so that you take into consideration other things that are going on in the year. Filming a video, oh wow, that was harder than we expected. Finding the right person wasn't too difficult. It was just the politics that came with that. We're still actually editing it, so we will release that soon. And also writing a script. You've got to write a script. You've got to make it as concise as possible. You've got to have the right backdrop. There's so many things to consider, because at the end of the day, this is your it's your kind of last hurrah before someone actually, and people are more likely to watch your video than they are to read the blurb, because of the time, and people are attracted to kind of visual. Being realistic with your goals. So we could have gone out there and said we're going to raise 500k to 1 million. People have done that on rewards-based platforms. However, it's not that common, and it's quite rare. So depending on how much you're raising, it's important to choose the right platform for that. So as James mentioned earlier, with the equity-based ones, there's no point going on a platform and raising 20k on an equity-based platform. It needs to be 50,000 minimum, absolute minimum. Whereas with the rewards-based platforms, you can start with nothing. You can start with a grand if you wanted, because people do that. Deciding rewards, again, so this webinar has been very useful for enabling us to choose the type of rewards that we should be kind of offering out to our networks. Communications, we've talked about that, how difficult it was to try and get things out without bothering people too much, but also giving a balance and letting them know that we're out there and this is coming. And the time, I think from my experience of running several events and conferences and this, we gave ourselves a very, very, very short time frame. But I think that regardless, things always happen last minute. It just, no matter how much you plan, there's always the pressure right towards the end. But I would say just give yourself as much time as you think is feasible. So yeah, and with the time frame, for us, it was about making sure that we had enough time for the actual period itself, which would be a month, and then leading up to Christmas, because Christmas, again, that's another issue where everyone's thinking more about Christmas parties and planning their Christmas and the holidays. So it's really important to time it really well. So let's finalize with tips. So what are your top tips, Lafina, for crowdfunding?
So I would say, first of all, give yourself as much time as possible. Not 2 weeks like we did, but anything's possible, right? Regular communication with your audience, just keeping them informed of what's going on, give them as much value as you possibly can. And one of the sort of more annoying things, if you're short of time, is just making sure that you've got every single number right in your proposal document, because that's something that if people don't know you so well, or if they've not had the chance to interact with you on social media, they'll be looking at or scrutinizing your business plan on the platform. It's slightly different for products to property, but people were scrutinizing our project and the deal analysis and the way we'd structured the finance and that sort of thing. And as James said, you've got to be really responsive to questions. With property platforms, you have like a forum where people can ask Q&As, so that you can also answer and everyone will get the answer. So you've got to really be on the ball, which I'm sure you will be, Avena.
Have to be. But also, if you've got a team of people, it's important that everyone has the same answer, so to speak. So you've got that consistency there, and everyone is pretty much aware. How about you, James? What's your top tips?
Essentially what I've said and what Lafina said, I'd say just add, sometimes it's worth going for more than you think you'll need, because costs do sort of spiral out. And I think when people see how much work it is, you'll wish you bought yourself a couple of extra months runway time. And then just prepare. A lot of the work is up front, like Lafina said she did it in, 7 minutes? I'm guessing there was a lot of work that happened before then. If you have the right sort of like pre-strategy going into it, then the campaign will just sort of play out. Don't get disheartened sort of halfway through. You'll find there's like a peak of excitement when you launch, and then there's like this middling bit for the next 2 weeks, and then towards the end it's all manic. So just make sure that you've got things going on throughout the whole campaign. Be prepared to make some noise, and as Abena said, like get out of the sort of doctor mindset of sort of like not wanting to sell yourself too much, and put yourself in a mindset where you've got something really valuable to offer, and people should be lucky to be able to invest in your sort of idea. And then it doesn't feel like you're trying to dupe people into it. It's like genuinely this might be a good opportunity for them, and that's why you're bringing it to them and giving them that opportunity.
Those are all very great advice. And also the last thing is, enjoy the process. Enjoy it. It's like really, really stressful. But I think for me particularly, it's just remembering why am I doing this? And apart from the big why that we've gone through, it's also about proving to myself that it's something that is potentially achievable, even if, say, worst case scenario, we didn't make the minimum. I've learned a huge amount from going through this whole process in itself. We've got a great team that have worked really tirelessly behind the scenes, most of them doctors. So it just really proves the concept that doctors can actually do anything. So by backing this project, you are backing this concept that actually doctors have an amazing set of diverse skills that can be hugely valuable in pretty much any sector. And we really hope that more doctors will use those skills in other sectors, as well as continuing with medicine if that's something they really want to do. So great. So the next webinars, we've got one this Friday with Doctors in Medical Politics. So that's on our website. And Lafina is going to tell us about some property investment exciting news.
Oh, can I share a screen?
Yeah, just press the share button. You know the way around.
Okay. So we'll skip this bit. It's just our property project. There it is. So coming up soon, and all Medic Footprints members will know about this, is we've got our very first property investing for doctors course live online this autumn in November. It's going to be on the 10th of November, and it's a full day course, but it's going to be online. We've got all our usual speakers, property tax expert for doctors, lots of interesting strategies, and we're going to be running through the basics right through to some quite advanced property investment strategies. And I might share some crowdfunding secrets with you too. And towards the end of November, we're going to be launching our Property Investing for Doctors book. So we're really, really excited about that. And Medic Footprints are our media partner, as they have been for a long time now, haven't you, Avena? So we're really, really happy.
I mean, I have to say, going back to our relationship, Lafina. So I knew Lafina from 2007. No, 2008, I think. So Lafina was my F2 when I was a CT1, surgical CT1. And she went on to do some really amazing, exciting things, and then kind of popped up about 10 years later with property investment for docs, and having had all of this experience in property investment. So it's been really, really amazing and honouring to actually support her in promoting this more to the network as a really great way of supplementing your income. Having been to one of Lafina's events in the last year or so, it's just becoming increasingly popular. It's really inspiring. Lafina knows a lot, but she's also got a really amazing network of people who can also be mentors and advisors, like one of them, Say, who is this, now he's a radiology, he just started his radiology training. He's a doctor who's got a property management and property investment type business, who loves spreadsheets. So I would say if you're someone who have heard, you're interested in property investment, or even you're dabbling in it yourself, it's something that you definitely have to attend, because it's very doctor specific, and it really challenges a lot of the myths that we have, the kind of, about how to get into investing, and the obstacles we give ourselves to not do it, so to speak. So, and also the book would be amazing. And the fact that it's online just makes it even easier. But I do say the events are great. So well done, Lafina.
Thank you so much. And in case I forget to say it later on, massive good luck for the crowdfunding launch. The Eureka Doc team are plugging for you, and we're big supporters, and we wish you all the best, and we'll see you on Friday for sure anyway.
Oh yes, so Lafina's also speaking for us at IBM, which is great. So fantastic. And I think you were saying about the webinar that you're doing on Sunday as well, Lafina.
Sorry?
Webinar that you're doing on Sunday.
So we're doing property investment for doctors, dentists and vets this Sunday as part of the DCW online event, which is really, really exciting. So you can join me along with a member of the Medic Footprints team at 6 p.m. this Sunday and get a little flavour of what it's all about.
Great. And I'm sure that you're all aware, we have a massive first ever online conference, which is free. So excellent value for money for people for doctors and dentists and vets who are looking for ways to diversify. So we've got a huge range of topics that are live, even larger range of topics that we've already recorded for you. And it's all free of charge. So this is a really unique opportunity. If you're not free on Saturday, or you're off traveling, or you're going to miss some of the content, which inevitably you will, because there's 20 hours worth of it, just join as a member, which is £6 a month, and you can watch it at any time. So brilliant. So again, thank you guys, Lafina and James, for your time and your support. You're both really, really valuable people within our networks, and I'm really, really excited about what you guys will achieve in the future, because this is just a journey. And guys in the background, this is our team. We're in our office, on the balcony of our office, which is next to the Thames, which is near Canary Wharf, but not quite. And you can't see O2, but the O2's there in London. So, and we're all of those are doctors in the picture. And so this is who's behind Medic Footprints. So thanks a lot. And thanks, guys.
Fantastic. Thank you. Best of luck. Hope to see you all online.
Good night, everyone, and thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.